And welcome back to another Good Vibes. I'm Martin False, and joining us once again, Debbie Cox DeNova. She's the transformation coach, and we got an interesting topic today.
We do.
It's sort of off the beaten path. Improving gut health.
Yes.
Most people don't think about that.
They don't.
But it's very important.
It is extremely important. And in fact, we have an epidemic of gut health issues, which isn't just contained in the gut. We've had other shows before where we've talked about the importance of the gut to the brain health, to immune system. But what they're finding over and over and over again is that if you have an unhealthy gut microbiome, you're going to have systemic problems all over the place because it has an influence over the entire body. So things like even erectile dysfunction, women who have endometriosis, they're finding that these are happening as a result of a breakdown in the gut system. And so if you are looking to improve your health in the new year, this is something that you definitely need to be paying attention to, because it's not just a matter of coming down to a healthy weight. A lot of people use a lot of strategies to come down to a healthy weight, but if your microbiome isn't healthy, you are not as healthy as you can be. You're leaving a lot of mental clarity on the table, a lot of immunity on the table. And so we're going to talk today about the simple strategy, but why it's so important as well.
So you might not have to take Viagra, you might have to take yogurt.
Exactly. And or, right? It depends, right?
Okay.
So we definitely don't want to say that we're going to tell people to get off of their medications or anything like that.
Sure.
Sometimes in some cases it's needed, but it's all about going back to the basics, right? So if you're not doing the essentials that human beings need in order to be healthy, then you may want to look there before you start wondering what's wrong with me, right? It could be just a matter of the fact that you were not eating the way our bodies were intended to be fed.
Right.
And it all starts with microbes. So our body, from head to toe, we are covered in microbes, okay? And this, by the way, this information comes from Dr. Will, I'm going to mess up his name, Busewicz.
All right, close enough.
Close enough. And he is the number one gut doctor, and he has written a lot about gut and poop, actually, because he says that we need to actually be looking in the bowl to what's happening, because that can tell us a lot about our overall health in a lot of different areas that you would not think are related. And so he says that we have 38 trillion microbes in our gut, and microbes can be, mostly it's bacteria and mostly within the colon, right? And that we, can be parasites, fungi, but it's mostly bacteria. And so when we talk about this, we're born into an environment where every living thing has a microbiome. And so it's sort of like a co-evolutionary process when we talk about the microbiome and how we have basically evolved with these microbes. Now, human beings, when you look at us on a DNA level, he says, we're about 99.99% the same. The thing that's most different about us is the microbiome. Even when they look at identical twins, they only share about 25% of their microbiome, even when they're eating the same, pretty much the same diet. So it's very interesting because our microbiomes are more diverse than they are the same. And so what that means is that when you have a healthy microbiome, and we've talked about this even with fecal transplants, they're doing a lot of research on that, and they found a lot of success in transplanting, let's just say, human fecal matter from thin people, obese people, people with conditions, into mice. And the mice, even though they're kept on the same diet, for example, there's one study that showed that there was an obese twin, an identical twin, and then a thin identical twin. And they took poop from each one of these twins, and they put them into mice who were fed the exact same diet. And just by that alone, the mouse that was fed the fecal, or that was transplanted with the obese, became obese, and the other one became thin. So it's controlling our metabolism. It has an influence on our metabolism.
It's sort of taking over.
Oh yeah, we're more bacterial.
So let me ask you. So it's a lot like people who let their weight get out of control. It's hard to get it back under control.
It is very hard. And
Similar?
Yes. And what he said is that you're actually swimming against a very strong current if you are struggling with your weight and your microbiome is set up to where you are actually craving the foods. But basically, the microbes want to eat. just like everybody else. They're very as living as we are, right? And so with every choice that you make to put food into your mouth, you're deciding which family of microbes are living or get to eat and which ones get starved out, okay? And so this is really important because he says that even though it's so connected to all these health issues, that our gut is actually quite forgiving, okay? So basically, in 24 hours, the choices that you can make today can impact your microbiome 24 hours from now, that quickly. And then over a course of time, obviously, then it keeps on.
So when you're craving something, I think we talked about this before. If I'm craving a donut on Saturday morning, could that be the microbes saying, go get me some sugar?
It most certainly can. And they will hijack your neurochemistry as well, make you hangry, right? So they have the ability to say, okay, so if you've been eating a lot of sugar, then in all likelihood, you have a big family of bacteria in your gut that loves to eat sugar. And so you will continue to crave it. Now, if you want to, and it's not that it's super easy to adjust for it, there is a little bit of a doing process to actually get yourself to starve out that bacteria and start to introduce bacteria that's healthier for you. But that is the key that we're not talking about enough, he says, because if we were to talk about changing our diet so that we're actually introducing a healthier like microbiome, and actually feeding and uplifting the microbes that are going to help us with our health, it has a healing process all the way around, and we can talk about why that is.
Shiny, happy microbes. All right, we'll take a short break. We'll be right back with Debbie Cox DeNova. It's right around the break. Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. Terrebonne General Health Systems, modern technology and timeless caring. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bourke, know your rights. All right, we are back with Debbie Cox DeNova, transformation coach. It's good vibes time. We're talking about gut health. So I get up early every morning and go to Civic Stop down the street, give my unsweet coffee. I got to have that cup of coffee. Most of the time, I don't get anything with it. Yeah. Every now and then, I get a honey bun. Just say I'm going to treat myself today. But in treating myself, I feel terrible for a long period of the day. That one honey bun changes my whole feeling. I just feel blah.
Absolutely. And then to make matters worse, because you're introducing that honey bun, now you have this bacteria in your gut that's going to crave more sugar through the day. So it's going to make it more likely that you're going to want to reach for something else that has sugar in it that hit. And it's because, in large part, the microbiome is controlling a lot of what we, especially if you're not aware of what's going on. It's almost like they're using as this puppet sometimes, where it's like they've actually shown in animal studies that it's almost like that it hijacks your nervous system so much that you crave it. It's an impulse, like it's a craving that it's very difficult to overcome. So the thing to do about it is to understand basically what's happening, right? So we have most of our immune system within the walls of the intestines, okay? And so what that means, and then to protect the inside, our intestines is the most vulnerable part. So to protect that is something called an epithelial layer. And that's just one layer of cells that is held together by a concrete kind of substance called tight junctions. Okay. So when you are eating highly inflammatory foods and you are breaking down the gut barrier, what happens is that epithelial layer is compromised. And what can happen is that the stuff in your gut can then get out into the bloodstream and actually all over your system and create chronic inflammation. And that's the epidemic that we're dealing with right now, is that so many people are keeping themselves in a perpetual state of inflammation that is having their bodies having to work overtime, and it's creating all sorts of conditions that, again, have not traditionally been linked to the gut. So what to do about that, right? We know that the the microbes are the stewards of the gut wall. So every 3 to 4 days, your gut wall is being rebuilt, which is the really important part. Yes. There's a turnover of the microbes for every 24 hours. But every 3 to 4, you're not dealing with the same wall that you were when you were born. Every 3 to 4 days, it's rebuilding. And so the thing to do is to give the microbes what they need in order to build a new wall so that you can actually fortify the system, but also so that you can feed yourself the foods that are going to raise your health and healing overall. And what that is mostly plant-based foods.
So do bad microbes build bad walls?
They break down walls.
Okay.
So they're creating toxicity in your system and inflammation because they're not natural to you. It's not something we get a lot of processed foods now, right? Shelf stable things, and you really should be concerned if something can stay on the shelf for a very long time without decaying, because part of that decay process is the microbes eating away at the food, right? So if you don't have that, then what that means is you're probably not getting a lot of microbes with the processed food that you're eating, in addition to the fact that a lot of it is not even recognizable as food.
So SpaghettiOs is not the best meal.
Not the best meal, right? So you want to actually put as many plants in your body as possible, okay? Beans are a really good source because there's fiber. So when you look at, and a superfood that he talked about is, for example, something like sauerkraut, that there's been fermentation that has happened. So at home, if you wanted to make your own sauerkraut, you'd have some shredded cabbage. You put it in a mason jar, pack it in really good, and then you're going to put a brine solution in there, so a saltwater solution, fill it up, screw it on tight. You're going to put it in a dark place for a week and don't bother with it. And what's going to happen is that the microbes are going to get to work starting to eat away at the cabbage, and it's going to create something completely different when you pull it out. It's going to be sauerkraut. Not the kind that you actually get in the store. I said it's going to be so much better. And the great thing about it is that you have the probiotics, right? The things that are actually really good for your gut in there. The prebiotics, which is the fiber, what they eat. We don't have prebiotics naturally in the body. We have to take them in, right? And so fiber is really important. And then the postbiotics, which is the chemicals that are really good for our body. So that constitutes a superfood. If you're dealing with gut issues and you want a really great way to rebuild, you want a diverse. In studies, they have shown that if you can get up to like 30 different kinds of plants in a week's time, so really diverse, that your microbiome becomes much more robust. They made a comparison to a park versus a jungle, in terms of like the health of the microbiome. So you're going to want to, start with the foods that you love, that that you like, that are plant-based. One apple has about 10 million microbes. So you take that in, and that all those microbes are getting into your system.
How many microbes?
10 million.
Wow.
Right?
An apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Exactly. And what happens to an apple when you leave it alone is it starts to decay, which is what's supposed to happen with food that is healthy for you. So what you want to do, if you're the type of person who just likes to eat the same thing over and over again, and especially if it's like a lot of processed food, is start to venture out and get into high fiber foods, okay? Because again, the fiber is there. It's going to help you with the short chain amino acids. It's going to help you to rebuild the walls of your intestines. It's going to help you to heal all the systems of the body. Your brain health is going to benefit. Your blood pressure. You're going to be less likely to have a heart attack, heart conditions, cancer. All of these things are reduced. Celery, yes, is really good. But having that fiber is really important because most Americans are not getting enough. Women are getting on average 15 grams of it, and you're supposed to have 25. And for men, they're getting 18, and it should be 38. So we're way underneath.
So guess what I'm doing when I get home?
Sad.
Throwing away the SpaghettiOs.
Good, I love that.
And the chef board di lasagna.
Yes, and reaching for the apple.
Apples and bananas.
Yes.
All right, Debbie, great segment. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're going to see you again next week on another episode of Good Vibes.